Hello, hi, and welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time, to the Therapy by Craft YouTube channel. My name is Eunice. I am coming to you from Southern California. I'm the maker and host behind Therapy by Craft. And y'all, it is stupid hot outside. I hate summer. I really don't like summer. I know people really like the sun and stuff, but if you've been around here for a while, you already know my dislike for the heat and the sun. Which is why it's very weird that I have been knitting blankets. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I've really been thinking about that a lot because my hands have just been itchy to knit on my blankets. But you know, last week I shared my socks and I shared my muscle bear hats. So I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and just share the blankets, even though it feels like the apocalypse outside. Okay. Anyway, like I said, I'm coming to you from Southern California where it's really, really hot. It is, gosh, last week it was in the 90s, like low 90s. That's Fahrenheit. And I think in Celsius, let me look it up. I think it's like, gosh, it was like 33 degrees Celsius last week. Today, it's a little bit better. It's like 88 degrees Fahrenheit or 31 degrees Celsius, but it's still really, really warm. I had put my blankets away actually around the end of May when summer sock camp was starting, because I thought and I had assumed that I would not want to be working on my socks. I would not want to be working on my blankets. Yeah, you know, imagining a bunch of wool on your lap, you know, I just thought that that would be very unappealing to me. But apparently that's false. For whatever reason, I'm reaching for my blankets. I did finish some socks, and maybe I'll share that in a project update later. But right now, yeah, I'm just reaching for a lot of my blankets. And so today I thought I'd share with you some of the scrappy blankets that I'm working on and what I'm doing, if I'm doing any modifications, why I love them. And hopefully, if you are interested in making a blanket right now in the sweltering heat, if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe you will find some inspiration. So I have my iced coffee. I am going to take a sip because I need to slow down a little bit. And we'll go ahead and get started. I have 4 blankets to share with you today. And the first one is actually a finished object, semi-finished object. And for those of you guys who were around during the first series, I guess, of my YouTube videos, you will recognize it because it is my Grow With Me blanket for my daughter. And I have actually grown it. So let me show you. Oy. Ta-da! Oh, okay, there we go. Can you, oh, I think I can fit it. Oh yeah, I think I can fit the whole thing on here. Yay! Oh, I'm so happy with this. So for those of you guys who have not been around and you don't know what this is, back in, I think it was March of last year, Pearl Soho had a blanket called the Amazing Log Cabin blanket. Is that right? Yeah, Amazing Log Cabin blanket. And I made Yeah. So I was looking at that pattern and I thought it was really, really cute. And at the time I had just finished Stephen West's Vertices Unite shawl. And what I had shared with you guys was that my favorite thing about that shawl was that it was modular in construction. Modular meaning that you work on a little bit at a time. It's almost like you're piecing like blocks together or like puzzle pieces together in a way, so that you're not doing the entire width or the entire length of the shawl at a time. You're just doing like a little bit, and kind of at the end you end up with like a complete piece. I loved that part of that shawl. I also loved that it was a garter stitch. That it was completed in garter stitch, because it made it super squishy, and just sensory wise it was a really good feeling to work on. And I wanted to make a blanket for my daughter that was similar, that had those two characteristics. So Pearl Soho had released this pattern and I wanted to make it, but I don't know, there were some things about it that I didn't love entirely. And what I was thinking about at the time is that I wanted to make a blanket for my daughter to take to school, because she takes naps at school. She's required to bring a blanket at the beginning of each week so that she can use it during her nap time. Now, what was a bummer and what I was reflecting on is the fact that she grows so fast. Like, she grows so much in such a short amount of time that I was really struggling to figure out what dimensions I wanted to make this blanket. And what dawned on me is that if a blanket is modular in nature, that means that I can work on a piece of the blanket, and then since the dimensions can grow based on, like you can pick up stitches and grow the blanket or whatnot, maybe I can just make a blanket to fit what she needs at that time. And then once she grows out of the blanket, I can pick up stitches on both ends to make it wider and longer so that it'll grow with her. And that's where the idea of the Grow With Me blanket came to be. I will show you what I mean in just a little bit. But what was really, really cool and what was really, really exciting is that I started the blanket in March. I ended it in April. So I finished it for the first time after about a month of making it. And I'll show you what I did. So the first, I guess, part of the blanket, was this long. So this right here, this was not a part of it. So it ended right here and it went all the way to where that blue stripe is. So where the brown is, that was not there. So I should have measured this, but I didn't. So that was how big the blanket was initially. Then in November of last year, I noticed that she stopped using the blanket and she stopped taking it to school with her. And I asked her, Sam, why don't you like this blanket anymore? Or do you not like the blanket anymore? What's going on? And she said, well, it's kind of too small now. It doesn't cover my feet when I lay down. And I thought, oh, the day has come. The day is finally here where the whole point of making this blanket, I can like actually try it out and test it out. And so I said, you know what, girl, no problem. I got you. Let me take the blanket. Let me add some stitches to it. I'll add some rows to it and hopefully it'll work a little better for you. So in November, so towards the end of November last year, I think it was around Thanksgiving time, I had noticed, and she had shown me how her little feet were like sticking out towards the bottom of the blanket. So I picked up stitches at the bottom and made this portion. I added these 3 stripes. I think, what is that? Maybe 6 inches? Is that about 6 inches? I added like 6 to 8 inches of the length of the blanket. And then for whatever reason, I put it down again. I don't know why I didn't just finish it right then and there, but I put it down. And then I didn't pick it up until about like a week or so ago. And I finished making it a little bit wider. And I added about, what is this? This is probably more like 5 inches to the width of the blanket. And now it covers her entire body. It like covers her feet, like from her like nose to past her toes. Like it covers her entire body. She's really happy with it now. Now she can use it again. And yes, it is hot outside, but she still takes naps at school. And I think it's like nice and air conditioned in there. So when she naps, she likes to snuggle up with the blanket. And I am so pleased because I can tell you that it worked. Like the idea worked. And it's great because I can just continue adding rows and continue growing the blanket as she needs it to grow. And it'll just be an heirloom for her. And it'll be, I don't know, like it doesn't have to be a completed thing because she's not a completed thing. None of us are completed things. And I don't know, I just really love that. And so because I'm continuing to grow the blanket, there's no border on it or anything like that. But y'all, I cannot tell you how happy I am with this and how happy I am that it has endured the test of time. Like it's still around, she's still using it, she still loves it. She really likes the colors. I think the next round, whenever she grows out of this size, I'll just see whatever I have in my stash at the time and use whatever I have. Previously, like the first version of it, I did 20, like each stripe was like 20 rows. So 10 garter bumps. But this time I didn't have enough. I just used whatever DK solid scraps I had. And some of these are like 5 garter bumps, some of these are 8, but I don't really care. Next round, I'm thinking, ooh, if I have like variegated yarn in my stash, or maybe I want to marl it or whatever it is that I'm feeling at the time when this needs to grow, I'll just use that. And I already cannot wait. I will discipline myself to enjoy what I have right now. And when the time comes to grow this blanket, I will. And we will enjoy the new size then. But yeah, some details about this blanket. It is a DK weight blanket. I used a US 7 needle size or a 4.5 millimeter needle. I cannot tell you how many stitches I picked up and how many I started with, but it will be on my project page linked down below. I do have a Ravelry page for this blanket and you can see all of the details on that there. Yeah. So that's my Grow With Me blanket. And you know what? I should mention this right now before I continue, that all of the blankets since I came to the realization last year about my love for modular projects, all of my blankets that I'm going to share today are modular. I get very bored easily with my knitting. And if a project is going to be a large one, I need it to like keep my attention and I need it to keep my interest. And I learned that a modular project is going to do that for me more than starting from the bottom of a blanket and going all the way up. Especially if I want the blanket to be pretty substantial in size. I need it to be quite, I need boosts of serotonin very frequently in order to keep me going. But anyway, so that is actually the common denominator for all of the blankets that I'm going to share with you today. This is the only finished one. The other ones, I will tell you why each one is uniquely enjoyable for me. All of these blankets are not blankets that you haven't seen before. So if you're here for like a fresh new idea, then I don't know, you might be a little bit disappointed. This is like the freshest, newest idea that I am going to share with you. The other ones are not new at all, but I will tell you my experience of knitting them, my modifications for them, and then why I actually like it. So if you're looking for a blanket pattern, you know, maybe it'll fit with a bit of what you're looking for based on what I share. I don't know. Anyway, okay. The order that I'm going to share my 3 pending blankets or my blanket widths is to go through how I use my scraps, like the way I use my minis, the way that I use my advents, or that I have been using my advents. Yeah, like the way that they travel across my projects. That's how I'm going to walk you through it. So I did get 2 advents last year. It was the Hue Locos Oxide Advent that I got last year, and then I also got McMullen Fiber Co's like library collection. I think that's what it was called. It was like a classic book themed advent, and it was beautiful. Like both of them were so beautiful. And I had just been sitting with them, not really knowing what to do. And I am heavily inspired and heavily influenced by Kate of the Crazy Sock Lady. And so the next, projects, or 3 of the projects are very much influenced by her. And the biggest thing that I was influenced by, or the thing that I was encouraged to do by watching her videos, is to not just sit on these advents and not like hoard them or just keep them in my stash. Like, use them. Like, let's put them somewhere. Let's actually enjoy working with them. And so I decided to make some scrappy blankets. Yeah. So what I have done, the first place that I put my advents and my scraps after I make a yarn or make a sock is to put them in my Coziest memory blanket. This is where I'm at so far. This is a pattern by Kemper Ray. Oh my goodness, is it all gonna fit in here? Ooh! I don't know why that makes me so happy, but it does. This is where my blanket is at the moment. This is the center. This is where I started. The blanket right here. And then it kind of radiates out. That is obviously like a Crazy Sock Lady thing, but I liked the look of it. And so that's what I'm doing. I am making a DK weight version of it. I'm using a US 6 4mm needle, and each of my squares are 20 by 20 stitches. Yeah, 20 by 20. I think I have put all of the oxide yarns in here already. I have some Full Moon Fiber yarns in here. I have yarns in here from like previous socks that I've made. Usually when I have leftovers after making a sock, this is the first place that I'll put it. And the reason is because I need about 9 grams to go into this blanket. I'm sure you guys have heard so many things about the addictive nature of this blanket. I think for me, what appeals to me and why I like it so much is that it is built like in a modular construction. How many times am I gonna say that today? I feel like if this is a drinking game, you should take a drink each time I say modular construction. And for those kids in the room, I'm talking about like apple juice, like take a sip of your apple juice each time I say modular construction. That'll be fun for the parents too, right? Okay, I digress. But it's like piece by piece. You do one like square at a time, you do one block at a time. And so it doesn't feel like a very overwhelming project. Yes, I'm working on a blanket, but it doesn't feel to me like I'm committing to hours and hours and hours of working on this. I maybe just need 35 minutes to do one square. And honestly, I don't even have to complete the entire square, but it does feel really good. There's like a finish line, like a mini finish line each time I work on the square, and that feels really nice. What I don't love about this as much is that as it's growing, yeah, like it has to sit on your lap while you're working on it. And lately it's been really, really hot, so that hasn't been as fun. I am at a really good stopping point with this blanket. So this has actually been in hibernation. This is, how many squares is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, yes, it's 8 by 10 at the moment. And it's definitely going to be bigger than this, but I really, yeah, I've put it away because I have plenty of scraps from putting yarn into this blanket for my other blankets that I'll show you in a little bit. The original pattern I think is a fingering weight, but this is DK, like I said. And I did make some modifications to it, which can be found on my Ravelry project page. The biggest one is what is commonly done, which is what the edges look like. I followed the instructions from Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. I don't know if you can tell, but even though it's garter, you slip the last stitch so that you get these V's, and then it's a lot easier to pick up. Is it gonna focus? Maybe not. It's a lot easier to pick up the stitches when you go back and add a new square. I do also really appreciate about this blanket that you don't have to commit to a size. You can decide, like you can make it like a square or a rectangle and then add width and length to it as you go. You don't actually have to start from the middle or do like what I did here. You don't have to actually start this way for that to be true. You can start from one corner here and then do like 4 squares and then decide to add another round and then another round and then another round. And it's almost like, you know, when you zoom in and you kind of pinch the corners and zoom in like that, that's kind of what you're able to do with this blanket. And I really appreciate that because then you have the option to finish the blanket at any point, really. It doesn't feel so daunting. It doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to commit to this like queen size blanket or even a twin size blanket. You can decide to do a pillow cushion instead. Or if at any point you're over it, then you can just stop. Right now, I'm not over it, but if I wanted to stop, I could. And I could just use it as a lap blanket. I could give it to Samantha and it's not a big deal. So that I very, very much appreciate about this pattern. And yeah, oh, here's the back. I've been weaving in my ends as I go, kind of. This is the back. As you can see, there are some ends that still need to be woven in, but I wait until there's 4 squares before I weave in the ends in that corner. I just found that that's a little bit easier for me. It's easier to pick up stitches for that square if there aren't ends like woven into it. So yeah. Is there anything else about this blanket? I don't think so. I don't remember when I started this, but it was roughly around January 1st of this year. I wonder if I'll be done with this by the end of, I don't know, by the end of this year? Like 6 more months of the year? I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm also not in a hurry to finish this. So that's okay. I don't know if I mentioned this, but each square takes about 9 grams of yarn. Oh, I did want to mention one more thing. So Kay, Crazy Sock Lady, uses signature straights. I do not have signature straights. I did not want to invest in getting signature straights. So this is what I'm doing instead. I know this is not a novel idea, but remember how I told you guys I hate DPNs? Well, I do, but I own some because I've tried using DPNs earlier in my knitting years. And they're just like sitting around. But these are a really, really great size to use for this blanket. I like the length of it. I don't like the really long straight needles, so this is what I like to use. And then I have these really cute needle stoppers that I use on the ends to basically make my own short straight needles. So these are the needles that I'm using. It's like a, I don't know, I think I picked it up from Michael's or something. It's like an aluminum, whatever. And then these needle stoppers I got from Buku Yarns, which is my local yarn store. And Amanda has really, really cute needle stoppers in our store. Okay. Next, so after my scraps go into this blanket, then I use whatever I have left over to make a square for my crocheted granny square blanket. So this I started also last year, I think, because I was very much inspired by Natalie of Nitty Natty. I was following her journey to eliminating all of her scraps and finishing up her whips and stuff like that. And she was making a bunch of these blankets that were fingering weight. And they were so beautiful. And one of them was a granny square blanket that she was making. And I have never in my life desired to do a fingering weight crocheted blanket before. But after watching her videos, I was like, that drape looks really good though. And that fabric looks really nice. And it would be really great to have a more lightweight blanket to have around the house. And so I picked up my, there was a Oopsie Sorella yarn mini set that I had purchased. And I used that thinking that that would be enough yarn to make myself a little lap blanket, or to have Samantha, or to make Samantha, you know, another like heirloom blanket or whatever. But I don't think that was enough yarn. I know it was not enough yarn. I started making it, and this is about 8 squares wide, and it's not big enough for me. So I am going to rip this out actually, which is not a big deal. I'm gonna rip this out. Oh, well, I'll talk about that later. I'm gonna rip this out. And right now I'm in the process of just making a bunch of squares. Each square takes up about 4 to 5 grams. It's a 5, let me see if I can show you one. It's a 5 round granny square. I'm using a 4mm hook. I think it's a USG hook, but it's just a 5 round standard granny square that I'm making. And what I like about this project is that I can take this around with me. It is a portable project because I don't have to join each square to the blanket each time I finish one. I know some people do it like that. They do like a join as you go situation, but I like to join my blankets or my granny square blankets using a continuous join as you go. Maybe once I finish this blanket, I can share that with you, but basically that allows you to lay out your squares, and you start on one end and you just go like this all the way across. And what's great about that join is, one, you can finish all of your squares and line them up or assemble them, arrange them. That's the word. You can arrange them however you want and then start the process of joining them together. I know that Tony of Tail Yarn Crafts did that for her blanket recently. So there's a lot of tutorials out there for how to do a continuous join as you go. But that's the method that I like to use. And because that's the method I like to use, I have just been making like a buttload of granny squares, like 5 round granny squares. And when I feel like it, I'll start joining them into my blanket. I am carrying the yarns in my summer sock camp little baggie that I got from Kay's Spreadshirt shop. It's very ironic because it's for summer sock camp, but socks are not in here. It's not socks, it's a blanket that's in here. This is weird. But whatever, who cares? I don't care. I'm pretty sure that Kay does not mind either. Right, so this went into my blanket here. As you can see, this is a square. I will use this to make a square for this granny square blanket. And after I do that, oh, yes, I did. I thought I didn't tell you the hook I used, but I did tell you. It's a 4mm hook. And then after I do a square for this blanket, then my scraps go into this little bag here once all of my once a square has been completed. And then I put it into this little bag to put into my jelly roll blanket. Let me show you where I'm at. This is what my jelly roll blanket is looking like. This is very, very long, actually. It is now touching the ground, and it is like up to my nose. I'm like 5'3". I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but yeah, so this is about, it's almost 5 feet tall, this blanket. So the reason why my scraps go into this blanket last is the same reason why I really like this blanket and appreciate this pattern a lot. This is, like I said, the Jelly Roll Blanket by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. And the reason why my scraps go into this blanket last is because I am able to use every last bit of it. If I put it into this blanket, then I will just continue knitting with it until I am done. So that's why the blankets, the scrappy blankets where I need a set number of grams, needs to go first. So the Coziest memory blanket goes first because it requires more yarn than the granny square blanket. But then after those two things are done, then the remaining goes into here. So as long as I have, I mean, gosh, even if I only have like 5 grams, I will put it into here. Let me show you a section where I didn't have much at all. Like you can see here, they're just like itty bitty, like micro stripes, but I don't care. I think it's cute. I think it makes it cute. Oh, I have a little bit of a story with this blanket though. So this was definitely inspired by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady, but I ran into some problems when I was first working with this blanket. So I started this blanket, when was this? Gosh, was it in 2023 or was it even 2022? Oh, I guess I didn't write it down. But yeah, I started this blanket around the same time that I was starting Samantha's Grow With Me blanket, I think. But I ran into a big mental block with this. And the reason for that is because I was using my DK scraps for this blanket and I was enjoying it, but I realized that my brain was very focused and it was fixating on how wide do I make this blanket, or how long, not wide, how long do I make each section? Is this too long? Is this long enough? Like I was tripping up over that. And what I realized was that so much of my mental energy when working on this blanket was being consumed by whether or not the strip was long enough, whether or not it looked good, whether or not I wanted the next color to match this and that or the other, that I just stopped reaching for this blanket altogether. I put a marker where I had stopped. So I had done 2 strips, like 2 strips of this blanket and a little bit more of the third, and I had to put it down because I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I put it away for a long time with the intention of actually ripping it out. I was like, I don't really think I'm liking this very much. I know other people really like it, but I'm not very much enjoying this, so let me just rip it out. But I kept seeing the jelly roll blankets that people were making, and it kept like popping up and, you know, kind of making itself, like intruding itself into my life. And there was a part of me that really, really wanted to work on it. And I'm not a sewist, but I have sewn. I think the idea of a quilt, or the idea of, I don't know, like a blanket that's quilted, or knitted blankets that have a similar look to quilted blankets, like the Sweet Shop blanket, for example, or, you know, the Jelly Roll blanket. It very much appeals to me, but I didn't know how to make it work. Then I was watching Kay, and she mentioned something about how she was like using her Row One minis to add to her Jelly Roll blanket. And I realized that the thing that appealed to me the most was that she could just use up all 10 grams of each mini and then pick up the next one and keep going. A light bulb went on in my head that, oh, that's what I need. I need a stopping point that has been predetermined for me for each color. I don't actually care whether it lines up or how it, whatever. I just don't want to spend the mental energy to decide when this is supposed to stop. So I took an afternoon. It didn't take me a whole afternoon, but I took some time to divide up my leftover yarns, my DK yarns in particular, into 10-gram minis. I just made my own 10-gram minis. For example, I had like maybe 30 grams of this yarn, for example, and I knew I wasn't going to really be doing anything else with it. And so instead of having a 30-gram ball that I would be putting into this blanket and then wondering every couple of rounds, or not rounds, but every couple of rows, do I want to stop now? Do I want to stop now? Do I want to stop now? I thought, I'm just going to do future Eunice a favor and just make a 10-gram ball. So that's what I did. And now I have a bunch of 10-gram minis that, like DK minis, that I just reach in and grab and put into here. And it has been so much more enjoyable. Oh my gosh. As you can tell, right? I stopped 2.5, not even half, but 2 and a little bit of strips. And then I have done what, almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more strips since. And it's been so much fun. I think that was the thing that removed the mental roadblock for me for this pattern. And yeah, I initially limited myself to just DK weight single-stranded for this project, but I realized I don't have a lot of DK weight yarns anymore, and I still want a DK weight blanket without purchasing more DK weight yarn. So I'm holding my fingering weight scraps double with itself, and it's been working out really, really well. I love that all of my scrappy blanket projects can use like 100% merino yarn, because before I really started getting into sock knitting, I was doing a lot of garment knitting, and my garments did not need to have nylon content in it. So I have quite a bit of yarn in my stash that is just 100% merino. And I don't want to use them for my socks because I do have a pair that I made anyway and they have holes in them. Maybe I'll share that in another video. Like, I'll do a parade of all of the socks that I've been wearing the last year. But yeah, because of that, I want to use them somewhere. I want to display how beautiful the yarn is without having to make socks with them. So these blankets have been a really, really great alternative for using up those yarns. But yeah, that's it. Those are my 4 blankets. The Grow With Me blanket that I finished over there. And then my Coziest Memories blanket, my crocheted granny square blanket, and then this, my Jelly Roll blanket. And I'm doing the same thing, by the way, the needles, where I have my double pointed needle. And then I have a stopper at the end. Yeah. Ooh, one more thing about this actually. I am doing a little bit of a modification to how I'm joining the strips together. So I initially followed the instructions for what Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady did. I'm trying to look for seams. Does it, can you even tell the difference? I don't even know. But I initially followed the directions for what Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady does to make her little V's at the end. And to make picking up stitches a little bit easier. And so that it's visually a little bit more appealing. But I changed it up from even what she does. And I have my notes on my Ravelry page as well, but I changed it up so that what you get is more of a twisted V. Is that gonna focus? Ooh, I don't know, maybe not, but it's more of a twisted V. Yeah, and I think it looks a little bit more crisp that way. There was a section that I wasn't doing that and it ballooned out. Like the V's looked a little bit more gappy and I didn't really love that. I want to show this to you because I think, but will you even tell the difference? I don't know. So this side, I feel like is a little bit more gappy than this side, which has the twisted V's. I don't know, is it like big of a deal? Maybe it's not even that big of a deal. I don't know, but it's a little bit more appealing to me. So anyway, that's what I do. That's a modification that I've done. But yeah, thank you for joining me again today. I very much enjoyed last week, my process of recording, not editing much at all, just posting the video and then sitting back and letting YouTube do its thing to like upload. That was actually really, really great. It did not take that much time at all. And today, same thing. I don't know. Thank you for those who have been very kind about that and encouraging me to not edit as much and to not really worry about it. You guys are the best. Hopefully I'll see you guys next time. And yeah.